What? Red, you should go call up the school and then go in and talk to them.
It's not the school, Jim. I mean, it's not the school at all. It's the state. The state mandates every other thing in the schools. Why don't they mandate that? That's one thing. I could go a little further in that, but you got me on tape there. I wouldn't.
Oh, it's not running. The battery's off.
Well, I know, but I mean, I still am not going to go take a chance the battery might come back to life. There is a couple things that's sticking right here, Jim, sticking right in there that's hard for me to swallow.
What's that?
Well, I'm not going to say it as long as I'm on tape.
All right, I'll turn it off.
I know.
Now go.
Well, you get your dad to tell you that. He knows.
What? What's sticking in his throat, Dad?
I don't know what's sticking in his throat. He's the guy that's been eating. I haven't.
Well, come on, tell us.
No, I'm not going to say it, Jim, because I mean, my wife would see that and she'd give me the dick.
I won't show it to her.
I know, but she, I mean, I've been interviewed before, Jim, and I'm just like I'm telling you.
It's not going to be on the paper.
There is some things that you teach some things in school, you don't teach other things in school, I resent it.
And so you're saying they should be teaching what?
One day, I said one day, and I didn't ask for a legal holiday. I never said that.
Yeah.
I never asked for a legal holiday. All I said is one day a year set aside, maybe close to Memorial Day. Yeah, that'd be a good time.
Yeah.
When they didn't teach another thing, no reading, no writing, no arithmetic, that whole day, from the first grade clear up to the 12th. A young man like him there, now they don't know what their ancestors has been. I mean, Mike doesn't know that his granddad was here, or his granddad was there. He doesn't know about the Arizona, and he's only one of a few kids. The kids don't know that. They never taught them that in school.
So one day a year where they go through and start with World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all those.
And I think they should teach at different levels. First grade, clear up to the seniors. First grade they should tell them. You bet. There's a lot of kids that their great granddads has been in the war that still live. There's still some World War I veterans living.
Sure, few.
Not too many, but a few.
My dad's brother was in World War I. Dad would have been, but he got an exemption. He had a commission offered him as a hay buyer for the horses.
I've heard veterans talk about sitting down on a horse and eating a meal and liking it.
Shoot, I'm not going to have enough. My battery's going to go dead here pretty soon. Oh, the thing to hook up to this, to plug it in. Oh, they got a plug over there. I can plug it in there.
What's the matter?
Well, why don't you guys tell about your experience from the time you got, from the time the war broke out. Where were you when the war broke out? What were your thoughts? I suppose you were in high school. What were your thoughts, and what were your thoughts as you got? Did you guys, whether or not you joined or whether you were drafted and all that kind of stuff? Go ahead. I don't care which one goes first.
You want to go ahead, Ray?
Why don't you go first, Ray?
I forgot.
Well, I remember, my oldest brother, he got drafted. The war hadn't started yet. My oldest brother, Bob, and he got married. It wasn't too long till he had a son. And I thought, man, this is terrible. Here I am, a single guy, no responsibilities, no wife, no kids. Why don't I get the heck in there and take his place instead of him having to go in the Army? It wasn't too long I joined up the Navy. So
where were you at? You were out of high school?
Yeah, I joined up because I didn't want any married guys to have to go to the service.
Were they drafting people?
Well, yeah, I drafted my oldest brother.
Would you have gotten drafted eventually?
Well, I might have. Well, I didn't even want to be drafted. I wanted to get.
Definitely would have been.
Huh?
Definitely.
Oh, I think so too.
What year was this?
That's in 1942.
And what year did you graduate from high school?
Huh?
What year did you graduate from high school?
1941.
So you'd been out of high school for 1 year?
Yeah.
And then what month was it that you joined?
June.
June? So 1 year after you graduated from high school. What'd you do that year out you were out of high school?
What did I do? Well, I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to work over 6 weeks at any one job.
Did you keep it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I never worked over 6 weeks at any one job.
So you did a bunch of different jobs?
I wanted to see what's going on.
What kind of jobs did you work?
I started out working at building grain elevators for a contractor. I started out as a general laborer, and the guy, superintendent, come and asked me if I would want to be a carpenter. And I said, well, yeah, I guess I could handle it. He said, if you bring yourself a hammer and a saw tomorrow morning, you get 50 cents an hour. Well, I was getting 35 cents. So I got, next morning, I brought a hammer and a saw, and I got 50 cents an hour. He put me in a corner bin. They laid the bins on a grain elevator. They just started out with 2x6s. And then after they got them up so high, they changed to 2x4s. And it was up to me. Give me a corner bin. I tell you, that had to be square because it messed out for everything else, but it didn't. You talk about a guy using a little square and a level. I used a square and a level. I guess I got that thing up there. Went clear at the top with her.
All right, so was the war already going on as far as in Europe then, I assume, at this point?
It wasn't no war.
I mean, not with us, though, but I mean...
But my brother, I mean, he was in Patton's army. And
when did the United States get involved in?
December 7th, 1941.
No, oh, okay, that's right. So you were still in high school when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor?
41.
You were in high school, your senior year in high school when that happened. Where were you when that happened?
In school.
Well, how did you hear about it?
On Sunday.
It was a what day?
It was on a Sunday.
Oh, it was on a Sunday?
I heard it by the radio, I guess.
So you were you at home? Do you remember where you were when you heard about the Japanese bombing Pearl
I was
Harbor?
in the living room, I think, when I heard it.
On the radio? Where were you, Red?
Gabriel Heater or Walter Winchell, one of them. Yeah.
Where were you?
Gosh, I don't remember too much about that.
Oh, yeah. Not when they bombed?
Well, I guess it didn't mean much to me. But I can remember.
Well, what year did you graduate from high school, Red?
I graduated in 42. But I can remember the boys that were seniors when I was a junior. There was 4 or 5 of them went up to Mansfield to enlist in the Army right at graduation time. And I can remember them. They went up to Mansfield, came back, and they was standing in the school down there, in front of the school down there. And as kids was doing, they was saluting, you know, acting a fool, you know. And they had a week to be at home, and then they was to
Report for duty.
report from Mansfield for duty. That was a year ahead of me. And that I remember.
When did you join up? Did you join or get drafted?
No, I joined yet.
Right after you graduated?
You almost had to join in order to get in the Navy. I mean, or Marines or anything else. If you didn't join, you went to the Army. And that's really.
So did you join up right after you graduated from high school?
No.
When
no.
did you join?
Oh, it was in July, I guess.
Of 43?
2.
Oh, but you graduated in 42.
Yeah, but that
so
was
just a couple months after
yeah,
you graduated.
after school.
Okay. All right, Dad. Then you started in what month of 42?
June.
June. So you just started a couple months before Red
Yeah.
did. All right. So where did you go first?
No, he was a year ahead of me. See, were you in 42 or 43?
I went in 42.
He worked for a year before he joined.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's I think it actually will be widening after we get out here.
Where'd you report for duty at, Dick?
Great Lakes. Where'd you go, Red?
Oh, I went to Columbus.
Columbus.
Yeah.
You went basic training?
No. I went to Sampson, New York for my basic training.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I went to Columbus and got on a bus and went down to Columbus. And I went down there. It was hurry up and wait, you know. And that night, went in the morning. That night, they give us a mattress about so wide. And that thick, the thing was about that thick. And it was as black as that water was down there today. And that's what everybody slept on. When they went down there the first night, that's what you slept on. Then they give you an old army blanket, one of them old green ones. God, I went in there. I couldn't sleep that night. Now, if you think that slept like a bed at home, you're mistaken, because it didn't. I thought, what a hell of a life this is going to be. If that's the kind of a life you're going to have to live in here, whoa, you don't know what you've been forgetting. And then I went to Sampson, New York, and got out there. You know, it was a lot better.
I hope your first day in boot camp wasn't like mine, though.
I don't remember much about that.
What was yours?
First morning for breakfast, they had beans for breakfast. And I
Where
said,
were you at?
In Great Lakes.
Chicago?
Yeah, and I said, well, this ain't going to work for old Dick. So I threw the damn stuff down and away I went. I
Didn't have to eat it.
Next morning, I had beans for breakfast.
He ate it.
I ate it.
What'd you have for lunch?
I don't remember, but oh, I tell you, I didn't see how I was ever going to survive with the food. It wasn't Mom's cooking.
I didn't mind it that much.
Didn't you?
Tell them what you had for Sunday night for supper.
Shit on a shingle?
SOS.
No, that wasn't what we called it.
What?
You call it.
SOS?
Well, Jim there, he got the thing on there.
Well, just tell us what you called it.
Oh, you mean
I know what you're talking about.
What?
I had an old chief in the Navy, Red. He refused to say it also, so he always said horse organ sandwiches.
There you go. That was it, Tom. You got that. That was it, Tom.
Horse organ sandwiches.
Yeah, that Tom got me. Tom got me.
He had never say a bad word, this old chief, see, so he always said it that way.
Yeah, I never heard that, Tom. That's pretty good, and I
Yeah.
like that. That's what it was.
Now, when you left boot camp, did you go right to Louisville,
no,
to the ship? Where'd you go?
no. I went to San Francisco
Okay.
to Mare Island.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school, rangefinder school there for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then November the 11th, we sailed on the Louisville.
How many weeks? 6 weeks?
Yeah, 6 weeks. I went to rangefinder school, so I was a qualified rangefinder operator, even air search or surface search. It didn't make any difference. And then after we was out a while, I belonged to what they call the fire control division, and I thought that would be. When I signed up for the fire control division, I thought I'd put out fires. It was boom boom.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean firing the guns?
Firing the guns, yeah. What ship were you on, Red?
I was on the SSO Bayway. That was a tanker.
A tanker. Okay. Did you put all your time on that?
Oh, no. Oh, no. No. When I got out of boot camp, and I come home. See, I got to come home I was in boot camp, what was it, 6 weeks,
Yeah.
8 weeks?
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Then I got to come home. I was in Sampson, New York. And then I came home. And I was home, I don't know, for 15 days, something like that. And then I went back to see, where did I go back to? I think that's when I went back up to Great Lakes.
Probably.
And then I went from there to Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
When I went to Norfolk, Virginia, and I went to gunnery school.
What guns? 5-inch?
All the guns that you had there, I was with them. And I can remember them airplanes going around up there in the sky. And
Pull the sleeve?
yeah,
Yeah.
pulling that sleeve, and that sleeve, I don't know how far it was, but that pilot had a hell of a lot of nerve to be flying that airplane around up there. Of course, they was watching you.
Yeah.
And that old sleeve was going back there, and the airplane was over here, and you'd shoot at that thing, and you'd hit it, and then they'd let out another one, and you'd shoot it some more.
What were you shooting at?
Oh, a sleeve.
What's a sleeve?
Well, it's like a balloon that you pull back of an airplane.
It was called a drone.
Is that what they called?
It gives them a target to shoot at.
Well, what if you missed and hit the plane?
Well, that
Whoa.
was the
Then you're
problem.
in trouble.
You bet your ass somebody was in trouble.
Are you serious? You had these were live people up there in those planes, and you were shooting at
Yeah,
the,
but Jim, that
at-
thing was way behind them.
Oh, it was way back. Like,
Yeah,
quarter.
towed it on
oh, a
big
quarter of a
road.
mile away.
Oh,
Did
Lord.
anybody ever hit a plane?
Oh, no.
they had
But I
shrapnel.
tell you another good one about
I first thought it was just like right behind.
No.
them little I don't know if you ever seen them SOC planes that they had on. They was on the heavy cruisers and battleships. We carried four planes aboard our ship and the Louisville. Anyhow, we was out at the NOE one day, and the Japs, we went in there for supplies. And
Where at? Where?
NOE. It's just a little island, and the land isn't a bit higher in the ocean than this right here.
After World War II, it was used for detonating an atomic bomb.
Oh, really?
Anyhow, we went in there and they weighed anchor, and the damn Japs heard about it, and they come in and started a raid on it. And so we put the planes in the air right away, and this one pilot knocked a Zero down. Well, their NOE talk. This Zero come down at him like this, and see, they only go about 110 or 120 mile an hour. Then SOCs, and those Zeros going about 300 mile an hour. And shit, he couldn't control it, So this guy had all kinds of maneuverability, this SOC with a two-wing job, and he just cut her off like that. This guy cut her back, and man, he downed that over Zero just like nothing.
What, the Zero went right in the ocean?
Yeah.
What did it say? You had planes on your ship?
Oh, sure, they were shot off on a catapult. Then they would land in the sea, and the crane would pick them up. And
Oh, is that how they work?
Yeah, they landed. They had the pontoons, and they had a net, and they'd land and they'd drive up and they hook a little hook into this net, see, and then as soon as they get her hooked, why, they'd have a thing come down, a boom that comes out on the ship, and the thing would come down. The pilot just hook it on there and pull them up.
You're kidding. I never knew that. I thought they only had planes on aircraft carriers.
No.
See, that comes back to my theory there again. One day a week, or one day a year.
Absolutely. Why?
One day a year, they shouldn't allow another thing to be taught in school except something about the service. In all 12 grades. And I've said that for years, and I still say it. Another thing that I'd like to see is, might not like me to say this, but I'd like to see every boy have to go to service.
For how long?
15 months, 18.
It wouldn't hurt them a bit.
It's an experience that you'll never forget. I wouldn't take the world and all for it. I wouldn't. I just look back. And of course, I never did mind it when I was in there. I always wondered why they took young guys. Why didn't they take old guys like you guys? Well, they take these young guys. Well, they got all that life in front of them. Why take the young guys?
Yeah.
My God, them young guys didn't have an ounce of brains.
No.
They didn't have an ounce of brains. It's an experience that...
Well, I'll just tell you about an ounce of brain. We had radar aboard the ship, and I don't know whether you know anything about radar or not, but we had it was real critical. It was in a battle, and my radar went out in the director. And it was very crucial that I give them these range and bearings all the time, or the ranges, and tell them whether to go right, or left, or up or down. Anyhow, I could fire the 5-inch guns right there from where I was at. Well, all of a sudden, my damn radar went out. So I unscrewed that thing, pulled it out of the case, and I was getting a blip, but wasn't right. So I had a coffee can there. We made coffee in there once in a while. I just took my knife out, cut a piece of that coffee can, wound it around that there dial. I knew what it was then. I can't remember now. But I figured that's where I'd get the interference. Put that thing back in there, and that son of a bitch worked like $1 million. and the lieutenant, he come up, and he said, "I hear you having trouble with this." I said, "Not anymore, sir." He said, "What'd you do?" I said, "I pulled it out and put some tin around that thing. He said, "You know how many million volts there is right there? Don't you ever do that again." I never worked on them after that. It fried me like a hot cake if I touched the wrong place.
You'll never know, Jim, till you go through something like that. You'd have them 20-inch millimeter guns, 40 inch. Now those 20 millimeters, you had to change the barrels on them.
They get hot.
I forget how many rounds you could fire. I don't remember whether it was a lot or just a few, but you fire them rounds and that goddamn barrel was red hot. And you had a pair of gloves. You had a pair of gloves, you put them gloves on, you yank that barrel out, then you had a tube. If I remember, that tube was about that big around. You'd take that barrel out, you'd throw her in that tube, that goddamn water would shoot out that thing. Oh, hell, if you'd had any brains, you'd have known better to do something like that, but you didn't have no brains, so it didn't make any difference.
Were you out for the WW then?
No.
What year did you get out?
45.
45. That's right. Duration of the war. You went in and you got out at the end of the war. Yeah.
I'd have been out about 3 months earlier, but I screwed up. We was on draft, you know, to come home, and I like to play poker. I still do. Haven't changed any there either. And when you're waiting on draft, well, you just had to be around, you know, because Robert Harris, gunner mate 3rd class. Here. Well, they called my name and I wasn't there. Hell, we sneaked off, went down, got on another ship down there and was playing poker down there.
Where at?
Up there. Hell, I was up the Great Lakes then. That's where I got discharged from, up there.
So what were you assigned to a certain ship most of your time in, or?
Oh no,
No?
you go different ships. Hell no.
You were on different ships?
Yeah.
So now were you always over here? Did you go to the Pacific, or were you?
I spent most of my time in the Atlantic, but when the war was in the last 6 months or a year, then I was over in the Pacific.
Now, Dick, you were on the Louisville for your whole time.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I was on a rocket ship.
Yeah, I got on to Louisville in November of 1942, and then when the ship got hit in 1945, must have been, can't remember exactly what month it was, but then we went, everybody that got hit supposed to get 2 years shore duty. Well, one of them got hit. So I went to, I was supposed to go to Honolulu and go to a radar school there. So I went through the school in 2 weeks, and then I taught for 6 weeks at the radar school. The first class, after I got through my class, they gave me the beginning class. I had a big blackboard, 280 people out here as my students. Some of them was captains, some of them was commanders, lieutenants, all down, and some of them was assholes. This one guy.
How do you qualify for that rank?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll just give you a qualification. This one guy, I was describing the way radar works, drawing a cathode ray tube and told them all the components of the cathode ray tube and how the electrons work and everything like that. And this one guy said, "How'd you learn about radar?" I said, "Well, I was on the Louisville for 3 years, but I said I got hit, so I got supposed to get 2 years shore duty." I said, "Do you know anything about radar?" I never heard another word from anybody the rest of the time. No, nobody. And I had them guys for all week. But that one guy, I had to grade his paper, and by God, he didn't get the best grade in the class either.
And I would like to say there to you, Mike, you know, he said about these assholes he was talking about there, you know. Most of them just come out of college. What they call 90-day wonders.
Absolutely, you're right there. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, they was assholes because they come out of college, they thought they knew everything. They didn't know their butt from a hole in the ground, but they was the boss, and don't you ever forget it.
We had two of them there in my director when the ship got hit. And this one 90-day boy, he's an ensign, and he was helping the gun boss. And when the ship got hit, why the gun boss said abandon the director. And this here guy looks at me. I knew I was burnt black, and wasn't too good to look at. And he looked at me and he said, "What are we going to do now?" I said, "Didn't you hear what the gun boss said? Get your ass out the door." he took her off out that there door to come in, the director. I never will forget that.
Now, what's the director, Dad?
It controls the fire of the director I was in, controlled all the fire of the 5-inch guns.
Uh-huh.
Knew your way in there.
And you get a range and bearing on them, and you have a range keeper. It's a pretty good sized piece of machinery, like a computer.
You gonna leave, Court?
Yeah, good, my mom's.
Well, Tom, Court, that's awfully nice. You might not have seen it. Did you ever see anything of Rio de Janeiro? Do you know anything about it? That's one of the ports that stick out to me more than any other port that I was ever in. You seen that? You know what that looks like? Oh my God, that's a wonderful port. That's the biggest damn thing you ever seen. And there's a lawn out in front of it. And of course, then there's a place for the airplanes to come in. And it's beautiful. And there's a Sugarloaf Mountain. Oh, Jesus, I can see that thing yet. Clear up there in the sky. And there's a trolley.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trolley goes over that city. And you can ride up that thing. And I think it cost you, I mean, I think it cost us around $7-8 back then to go over that.
Yeah.
My God, you go over that thing, you look down. But it's really something. It really is. And you go up those rivers, Matt. It's just something that's unbelievable. You can see the bananas over on the sides, you know, of the rivers going up there. And what the biggest thing is when you go up there and the old boatswain mates, boy, they work like the dickens to get you filled up. There's over 1 million gallons of oil they put on those ships.
Thanks for coming over, Lou.
Yep, we'll see you.
And
Later, Lou.
Yeah.
See you Wednesday.
come up, Lou. And
Are you gonna, you're gonna be, what are you gonna do?
they
I
try to
gotta
get
work
you
the whole
loaded.
time.
See, you had to get a load, and they try to get you loaded, you know.
Yeah, I will.
And
But I'll be
then they get you out on the high tide. See, you don't realize what that high tide
Oh,
is
yeah.
and low tide.
She should be
You'll never know. You spend time in
Well, I'll be there all
on the
3
water.
days, so.
and you start out, and
All right.
well, that ship, whew, that damn thing when it's empty, sticking
Okay.
way up in the air like that.
Yeah, I'll be there.
You get
I think
that
I'll
oil
get
in
it.
it, and
That's
she
fine.
just comes down. Hell, I don't know. I suppose it's only 6 feet out of the water.
Oh, midships you were.
Hell, I don't know. Maybe not that.
Every bit of that, because your decks would go awash in a storm.
Whoa! I
Yeah.
tell you, they'd come over, and
Well, it was awful hard to pick them tankers up because they was low on the water.
whoa! I tell you, they was down there. If you ever got hit, see, I told them when I went in the service, I said I want to go out. I want to come out as I went in. If I can't come out that way, I don't want to. And by God, if you'd ever got hit, you'd have never knew what hit you.
No, you're
You'd
just
have been
You were on a
gone.
tanker, did you say? No, what was your function? What did you guys do?
Well, I was a gunner's mate. See, I was.
But what
always
was- what
on the
did the
battle
defend,
station.
try to defend any enemy.
They
What did the
carry-
tanker do?
They
What was the
carry the
tanker's
fuel
job?
oil for the ships that your dad was on.
Yeah.
The Louisville would come alongside and refuel at sea, because the Louisville needed more room for armament and personnel. They didn't have enough room for fuel oil. So
Oh, okay.
the old
So-
black oil. So he hauled the black oil.
So in other words, if you got hit, it was gonna go
right.
poof.
He was the
And it wasn't only that. Hell, it didn't make any difference whether you loaded or unloaded because you had all that stuff in the
Yeah, that
ballast
fume
tanks.
tastes just as bad as the oil.
Ballast tanks.
he was nothing more than a floating BP station.
That's right. But you ought to see those cowboys that we had on the ship. Man, they'd wind them old boats and mates would wind them ropes up. to throw them little lines across over to the other ships?
It's something to watch them tie
In the
up.
middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
They're going like this.
See what they do, they throw a little line about like this with a weight on it across, and then them guys would get a hold of it and pull it. Well, then they tie this bigger line on,
To the
and
winch.
they tie a bigger line on. Pretty soon you got a line damn near that big around. Real.
And you just keep coming to you come together, and then
you
you
put a
never
whip.
stop. You don't have no time to stop. You keep right on a rolling, because once you stop, your ass will get bumped off. And you
Well,
couldn't.
What do you mean by that?
And you got to
Ships
have.
will hit.
Oh, so you know you're still moving forward
yes.
like that.
Oh hell, you never
and
stop.
then you go.
How close do the ships get together?
You're on a zigzag course too. You go like after you go so far, you say, execute the fowler, turn, so and so. You know, then they turn maybe 3 degrees, 15 degrees. Then they go so many minutes, and then execute the fowler, turn right, so much, and that's what they call a zigzag course. And if you don't follow this zigzag course, you get out of this. Boy, you do your ass in mud. I'll tell you that.
Daddy, I can't hold him.
How big, what'd you have armament on that tanker? 5-inch 38s?
5-inch 38s. That's right. We had some 4-inch 30s.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, 4-inch 30s, 5-inch 38s, and
Did you ever have 1.1?
no,
Didn't you?
no.
So how often did you get people? How often did you have people? You know, where you engaged in battle with people firing at you and stuff?
Jim, I think I only had 4 general quarters in all the time I was
What's
out.
general quarter means?
That means get your ass out there.
You're happy.
They're coming at you.
Daddy,
But the thing of it is, there again, like I said, you'll never know till you go through it. You can't realize how damn dark it is at night. You don't know how black it is out there. You get out there sometime.
Yeah.
Shit, you
'Cause
can't
you
see.
can't have no lights, see.
You can't see nothing. I mean,
It's at night. You
there
need
ain't
to at
nothing.
nighttime.
It don't make any difference whether it's nighttime or daytime. There ain't no damn lights on.
No, sir. And as soon as in general quarters, the smoking lamp is out. Nobody smokes. Nobody lights up a cigarette. And if you do, why, you're an ass in the brig for long.
Buddy, if you ever get caught with a light on a ship, you're gone.
Especially a tanker.
Or a hot dog.
Good. I mean, if they're fueling, you know, the smoking lamp is out when they're fueling. Same way if they're fueling like fueling a cruiser like us. And somebody lights up a cigarette while they're fueling.
What was your function as a cruiser? What was a cruiser ship's function?
Our
Well-
function?
Yeah. What?
Well, we was most of the time we had an admiral aboard our ship at one time. He died right beside me down sick bay. He got hit the same time I did.
But I mean, what's the cruiser ship do
Well,
as
he's-
opposed to the
they're
aircraft
more-
carrying
more-
on?
They're more or
or a
less
battleship.
They're more or less the nucleus. The cruisers and the battleships are in the center of a fleet. The one that's going to go do battle with the Japanese. And then they have destroyers out around the outside. And then they have destroyer tenders. And they have anti-sub tenders, you know, smaller that go after submarines. Well, they put these smaller ships like the destroyers out to protect the cruisers, the light cruisers, the heavy cruisers, and the battle wagons. The battle wagon's always in the center. And if the admiral is on your ship, you're in the center. You're protected pretty well. And we, fortunately, a couple of times, we had admirals aboard our ship that directed the 7th Fleet and the 5th Fleet. And they didn't get, we got one hit right in my compartment where I slept with a torpedo, and I lost everything I had. And they give us all clothes, you know, new clothes and stuff like that. But I had pictures and things like that in my locker, so everything got wet. Filled completely up.
Where were you?
I was
At your station?
in my battle station.
But you think
Huh?
these porpoises that we was talking about here a little bit ago, they showed you pictures of those torpedoes coming through the water. I never seen one, but I've seen pictures of them. By God, you see these porpoises coming through the water. mister. You think they're a damn torpedo, and don't you think they aren't? Because one of those torpedoes is going as fast as, whew, as any damned airplane you ever seen. Those torpedoes can sail through those torpedoes, those porpoises, and they leave a trail in the water just like a torpedo.
Yeah, they do. What used to be interesting is at moonlight at night.
Oh.
And the phosphorus, you know, the moon, when the wake of the ship would show the phosphorus in the water would light up just like you'd light a match. And you see these here porpoises and stuff like that making wakes, and then and they had guys at lookouts at night and lookouts in the daytime, you know, for air and for search for torpedoes and stuff like that. And guys, there'd be all kinds of general quarters and false reports, you know, on when they fish and whales and.
Do you think, Mike? Do you think there's flying fish? Huh?
Yeah.
Do you? By golly, you ought to see them sometime, fella.
Yeah.
You want to see them. They don't fly very far, but
Go out in the morning with a hose and wash the deck off to get the fish off the deck. They have wings. They have about that long.
that's right. That's right.
So, Dad, where were you? So you got hit. Your ship was hit by a torpedo one other time before the time that you got hit real
with
bad.
a torpedo once. We got hit with a shell once when we was.
And now, how bad a damage did that do to the ship? Did you guys have to go get repaired? And
Yeah, well, we didn't have to go into port. They just took a piece of plate. The guys would hang over the side and welded another plate on top of it, and then pumped the water out.
oh, really? Right while you're out at sea.
Yeah.
So now, what? Tell about then what battle you were in and what led up to the events of when your ship got hit, you know, by the kamikaze.
Well, the biggest battle that we was in was at Lady Gulf.
What was the date and where were you?
It was in 1945, just before the war was over. The Japanese fleet.
Just before or after Midway?
This was
Before
this was
Midway?
Yeah, it was before. No, I don't know for sure. It was our fleet was ordered to go to Lingayen, report to Lingayen Gulf, which is right close to the Philippines. It's a gulf. The Sagara Straits goes right into the Lingayen Gulf, goes into the Philippines. Anyhow, our orders was to report at a certain place there. Well, we started for there and we run into a hurricane. And waves was close to 80 foot high. And we hit one of them suckers like that. And if you was on the quarter deck or the forecastle deck or any outside topside deck, it took her. They had planes setting up on the catapult. Had two planes setting up on the catapult, and a wave come along to get some of it. Slammed planes right off of that catapult. I'm telling you, you don't believe the force of those waves, you're crazy. But those waves, we was going 10 knots, and we was in that storm for 2 or 3 days, or 4 days, maybe 5 days, and we wound up 10 miles from where we started. And we was going into this thing for 5 days. We was 10 miles back further than where we started. Anyway, we got through that, and then we started up the straits. We got word that the Japanese fleet, big battle wagons and everything, was coming up. Well,
The battle wagon is a
the biggest ship that they have, battleship. And they were coming up like this up the Sagara Strait, and we was coming into Lingayen Gulf like this, see. And this is where we met them. Well, this is what every admiral's dream is, what they call crossing the T. You see, we could shoot all 9 guns this way, but the Japs could only shoot 3, their front guns, at us. And we sunk the battle wagons. And that was one of the biggest surface battles in the war right there. And then we went, after we got the battle wagons sunk, we went into the Philippines, and that's when they throwed the book at us. The suicide planes come in, and we knocked down 2 of them, and this one come in, and I just couldn't tell the boys to shoot. There was a destroyer right there, and here comes this Zero, and he was hit. We'd hit him, but if we'd have fired on him, we'd have hit the destroyer.
One of your own.
Huh?
One of your own ships.
Yeah.
We had
So now, when this plane was coming, you had your job was the radar, and
I gave a range on it all the time.
you gave the guns the range on it, and they fired it, and they actually did hit the plane.
Oh yeah, he was a fire when he hit the ship. Yeah,
But it just didn't go down.
Huh?
But it didn't go down.
You know, he got right into the ship. He went right down below the director where I was, and right in front of the bridge, and right on turret 2. He hit turret 2. What he was gunning for, he was trying to get to the gas tanks for the ship airplane, the 100 octane gas. If he could got that, he could have knocked us off. See? But he didn't get us. He got the bridge and the turret 2. But the turret 2 was strong enough. It didn't hurt the turret, but it knocked the bridge out and knocked our director, just burned it clear up. And it burnt most of the guys in there. And the propeller, this one guy, now this is another thing, this guy, I had only met this guy, I think he's only on watch 3 times. He was 42 years old, come aboard ship, married, had a family, and they drafted him. And he was a cross leveler. And I was like standing right here, and he was right over there, the director. This propeller off the Zero, when it hit the ship, went right up through the director, went right through him right there. And God, I couldn't leave the director after that. I mean, till he got him out of there, when they come in and get the hell out of there. But I was the last one to get out of the director because I wanted to help this guy get out.
Was he still alive?
Huh?
Did he die instantly?
No, he was alive. But I figured that maybe we could help him get out, see? But he had this propeller through him. I had no way I could carry him. All you had was to hang on to a little railing like that to go out of a little door and around to get onto the deck. So they finally, one of the officers in the bridge come up and told me to get out.
So the plane didn't hit right underneath you,
Mm-hmm.
and then the flames, that's what shot up into where your room?
It was, these airplanes were loaded with petroleum jelly. And when they hit, they just blowed up, and this gasoline wasn't liquid, it was a gel. And that's why it burned it.
How many people are in the director, and how big of a area is it?
Let's see, 1, 2, cross leveler, gun boss, assistant gun boss, rangefinder operator, 2, 4, 6, 8. There's about 10 guys in the director.
How big is the room?
Oh, well, see where Tom's there? Come out to there, out to here. Okay.
So what? 12,
Everybody
12
had
feet by
it wasn't about
10 by 10 or
about
something?
10 foot probably.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So now what all happened then when the...
When they got hit?
Yeah.
Well, of course when the ship gets hit, they set what they call condition Z, and they shut off all ventilation, and they shut off all they shut off everything so that if something catches a fire or blows up, it ain't going to spread somewhere else. And they close all the hatches so that there's a hole in, you know, hole in the ship anywhere. Water ain't going to go from one compartment to the next. Sink the ship.
How many people in the director survived?
How many survived?
And how many were killed? Like they were in the same room with you?
Everyone survived, but there was one guy in the...
There's just one of the guys that were killed?
One of the guys, cross-lever, yeah. There was 95 guys that got killed.
But I mean, in your room, there was just one guy that got killed?
It wasn't a room, it was a director again.
Well, I don't know what a director is, so that's why.
Well, it was a place to control the
So there's not a, you didn't have a ceiling? Or?
Oh yeah, it had a roof. It had a rangefinder out here like this, and had a radar antenna. And you had two doors, one on one side and one on the other side. And then you had little windows that you could peep out of.
So it's a room then. I mean, there was walls and a ceiling.
Yeah, kind of a room.
Well, what? And so there was one of the guys. So just one of the guys was killed in the same room with you then.
Yeah.
And then what? And then did everybody get burnt like you did, or?
Most everybody.
How bad did you get burnt?
Well, I had.
I mean, did these flames just shoot right up and your clothes catch on fire and all that?
Burnt my shirt right off from me. Burnt all my hair off. I had no hair on my head. And.
You mean your shirt it burnt so fast that I mean you didn't have was it on fire and you were screaming around yelling and going ah?
I had my sleeves rolled up, and the only thing it didn't burn is where I rolled my sleeves up, right here. It burnt right up to here. Then it burnt my back, burnt the shirt right off my back. That's all. I had a little bit of my shirt left when I went down to sick bay.
Did the fire? How did you get? Did it just burn so fast that you didn't have to even put the fire out?
It was just a flash, Jim.
It was just poof.
Poof.
So you weren't like running around screaming with your shirt on fire.
We wasn't in the fire a long time.
So it was just one big
I seen
poof.
the thing coming. I didn't figure I'd ever live.
What?
It was coming right toward me.
The plane?
Yeah.
And how did you see it? What were your?
I had a little window there where I could see.
Yeah. And you saw that the plane got hit.
And I seen the plane get hit. It was a fire, and it was coming right toward me. I said, "This is it, Dick." Man, I said my prayers and got everything all taken care of. Bingo. Yeah. So I mean, I thought this was it for me.
But it hit below you. You thought it was coming right at you.
Yeah.
Of course, you're not looking at it was just a few feet, huh? As far as.
Well, it was coming right toward me, but it was down. It hit lower than underneath.
And the admiral was in where it got hit, or.
The admiral, he was on the bridge, and he was about, probably 8 foot lower than I was.
Where did a lot of people in his room get killed? Where he was?
Well, his was an open bridge, just like this is a bridge
Yeah.
right here, see? And they probably 8, 10 guys there, officers and signalmen and communications people. Yeah, they got burnt bad, just like the guys in the director. But the guys in the director, I mean, you didn't have no place to go. You're there, you take it, see? And of course, it burnt the director so bad you couldn't move the director. You know, whenever you got in the director, you always turned it. Had a little thing there that turns it, and you walk in the door, see, off of a little platform. And then when you get out, and then as soon as everybody gets in, they crank it up so it's forward to going the way the ship's going. It went around circles. It could go in, pointed anywhere, because it pointed toward where the targets were.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody, they had to, I knew there'd be a bunch of them down in sick bay. I didn't think, what the hell is these me going to sick bay? There ain't nobody be able to take care of me anyway. And, you know, I just went down there in the mess hall and sat down for a while. And then somebody grabbed a hold of me and said, "Come on, let's go to sick bay."
So after you got out, you just went down and sat down somewhere?
Yeah,
You're all burnt up?
No, I didn't want to go to sick bay.
But you were all burnt and you just went around and sat, were you in shock?
Yeah, I guess. I just wanted to sit down and think what the hell was going on. Well, what I heard, there was more of them planes out there. See, here's what, and when they said set conditions, Zed, I could see we getting hit again, and if we got hit again, and the ship was going down, old Dick wasn't going to go down with the ship. And I could see me trying to swim to keep that salt water out of my wounds. And that's all I was thinking about, treading water out there in the ocean, keep my arm and face.
Well, Red, I'll catch some more of you later.
No, what you want to do is do what I told you to do. Get some of that taught in school.